Hello, my name is Jim Alcon. I'm the editorial director of BookTrib, which is a website where readers and writers meet. And welcome to the latest in our BookTrib series of author interviews. Today we're speaking with Laurie Petrou. Hi, Laurie.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Jim.
Oh, we're excited. Laurie is an associate professor at the RTA School of Media at Ryerson University in Toronto. She's published a collection of short stories titled Between, which was named a Globe and Mail Top 100 book. And just recently, she's published her first novel, Sister of Mine. Just to give you the plug, right? I hope I have the right cover because I've seen several
That's
versions.
the right cover, yeah. That's
Good.
the U.S. cover. Yeah, it just
Excellent.
comes out today.
Good. Sister of Mine, just to set up the conversation, let me just read the synopsis of the story. Penny and Hattie, orphan sisters in a small town, are best friends bound together to the point of knots. But Penny, at the mercy of her brutal husband, is desperate for a fresh start. Willing to do anything for her older sister, Hattie agrees to help. A match is struck and a fire burns Penny's marriage to the ground. With her husband gone, Penny is free, and the sisters, it seems, get away with murder, but freedom comes at a cost. Now, USA Today best-selling author A.J. Banner wrote this of Sister of Mine. Listen to this. A poetic, engrossing tale of the ties that bind sisters, the devastating secrets that tear them apart, and the wrenching sacrifices they make in the name of love. An unput-downable page-turner. I think that's really spot on. I read the book. I think that hits the nail on what this book is all about. Is unput-downable a word?
It is now. It's my favorite word.
It is now, right. It works. I knew what it meant. So,
yeah.
In the book, Laurie, I've seen the words twists and turns, mentioned a number of times to describe the plot of Sister of Mine. So I'm curious, are there any writers that you can think of that are particularly effective in the twist and turn formula that you admire and maybe had some influence in your work?
Right. Okay. This is a tough first question because I feel like I have so many different. I'm now looking at my bookshelves, but the room I'm in is all kids' books. So I'm liable to say Gordon Corman or Stuart Gibbs. The books that I read such a variety, and they're not always thrillers. And so sometimes the books I read are like quiet, long, character-driven books. Sometimes they are, quick page turners. I will tell you a book that I recently read that I absolutely adored, and that was by Madeline Miller, and it's Circe. You've probably seen it everywhere. I hope I'm saying that correctly. It's about the gods and goddesses of ancient Greece, which is a soft spot of mine. I took Latin all through high school and classics. But that book, you take a story that takes place not even in this world, and the story is so compelling. And so it just goes to show you that in the hands of the right author, someone can take any story and really make it an unput-downable page-turner. And that one definitely is. And that's the most recent book that I feel like I've read where I literally couldn't put it down. I actually was going to ask one of my boys to read it to me in the car while we were driving, but I didn't think it was appropriate for them to read.
Well, sticking with this twist and turn theme, I've always wondered, do you have everything mapped out from the beginning? Do you know that from the outset, this is where I'm going? Or, do you think do ideas present themselves along the way, and do you take some detours as you're writing?
Definitely take some detours. And I will say, and I mean, this is no secret, certainly in my life, but it takes a village, and you can have people who read your book and think, oh, what would really make this great, or know where you could really ratchet up the tension, or, so I would say that for me at least, and I imagine this is true for many authors, but you have an idea when you map it out, but the first draft, I mean, you don't want anyone to really read the first draft. It's not great, but it's sort of like a rough idea. And then as you write more drafts and you do more revisions and you get more feedback and you get either whether it's a good friend or whether it's an editor working with you to make that book stronger and stronger, all those little things are tightened up, and there might be added twists and turns, or there might be parts that get taken out altogether. So I would say, general idea, totally mapped out. Things that are added to make it much better, of course. So I would say, it's like 60% done when you're done in your first draft, and it's got a lot to go to make it as strong as it can get before it comes out.
But I would also bet that as words start to, hit the screen and you start to see where you're going, that, it's not as if you have, there's no law that says you have to have this all,
Yeah.
set from the beginning, but you might say, hey, you know what, now that I've gotten this far, I just have an idea now that I see the way this is turning out. I imagine that happens.
Absolutely. And that can happen pretty far down the road too. Like I should add a scene here, or I should take this out, or this isn't helping, or I should change things, or I could change the point of view. Whose point of view is it written from? I mean, yeah, it's wide open. So
Okay.
there are so many things that you can do to make the book better as you're going.
So let's talk about the Grayson sisters.
Okay.
Penny, of course, is the book's narrator, and Hattie is her younger sister, and they have, I guess you'd call a complicated relationship. Um, Now, I see where you told somebody, it might have been BookTrib in another interview actually, that the sisters are not really based on anybody, but rather they are a product of your wondering just how far we can push very close relationships before they buckle under some kind of strain.
Right.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. I've said this before also, but I don't have a sister. I am a sister. But I have a brother who I'm very close with, and a very close best friend. And so I love stories about families. I love stories about siblings, and so I wanted to have this really, really intimate, close relationship. And sometimes family is the only way to do that. I mean, friendships, you can break friendships, but it's hard to break family. I mean, you got to push it pretty hard. And I wanted to work things in that would really make family feel compelled to be that person for their sister. So, I have a friend whose father always said you should have someone you can call in the middle of the night to ask them for $5,000, no question asked. I mean, the numbers probably changed, but
I'm still looking for that friend.
yeah. But that idea that who's your person, who's the person that you can ask, and in this case, making it a sister is someone who might feel like they can't refuse.
Well, that brings me to a couple of questions that I wanted to ask, not particularly in this order, but maybe I'll switch it. Talking about that friend or relative that will, quote unquote, do anything for you. No questions asked. You name it, I'll do it. But the question is, I guess, when you get into a high stakes story like this one, is that do anything a lifelong pact, or do the rules change somewhere? Where all of a sudden, I said I'd do anything for you, but hang on a sec,
Exactly. I think, Shakespeare said neither a borrower nor a lender be. There's a reason for that. There's a reason people say don't get into business with family, or don't lend money to family, or all of these things. It's because what happens next? And so do they now, are they indebted to you? And when are you going to call upon that favor? And not only that, but what's that action or whatever you did to help them going to do? How is it going to fester, or how is it going to, trouble you going forward?
Right. And I think I saw where you referenced someplace where there are many stories about familial obligation and death, and they've been documented many times. And I think you said a lot of the stories seem to have they seem to be in the masculine tradition. Mm-hmm. And I think I saw, this might have been on your website or somewhere, where The Godfather, I think, is the classic example of this is how we operate. My question is, what did you have to do that suddenly you were taking that same theme but taking it with female characters? Was there anything you had to consider to sort of make that change?
I think maybe it's because it's lived experience, but it didn't feel like a conscious act, although I was conscious of it later. Okay. And reflecting on the book after. But I mean, small things like, people talk about domestic thrillers, and I think the reason that word domestic comes into it is simply sometimes because it's about women, but also these things happen in the home. And in this book, these things happen in their house and in their town, and there's scenes at the daycare, and these are the sorts of things that probably wouldn't frequent, at least conventionally, male-centered novel, but they're part of the dynamic for these women. So things like caring for the child and daycare and the work that they do inside and outside the home, and all those kinds of things that are typically and conventionally considered around the female life. It just seemed like it came naturally, I guess, just because that's my life. It felt easy to write, and it seemed like it would be easily part of their lives too.
Okay. The sister relationship, it's clearly put to a test. You raise the stakes very highly. This is just not your normal, situation between sisters, that who's taking the garbage out and who's driving,
Yes.
who's picking up so and so at the game. So in creating this, how does the creation of this tension extend the limits of the sisters' personalities? What do you find out and learn about the sisters through the tension and the high stakes you've created?
They become kind of unlikable. But for me, and I think I'm hoping also for other readers, like they're always sympathetic. I mean, they are pushed. They're pushed to unlikable places. The readers who told me they were horrible, but I loved it. So their personalities are really pushed to the test, and what their character is pushed to the test, like what kind of people that they are. And I think that these sisters, probably under normal circumstances or before this happened, would have considered themselves good people. And maybe still would at the end. Maybe they still felt like they were doing the right things for each other and for themselves. But yeah, I would say their integrity and their loyalty and their character is pushed. But none of us could say how we would respond in those situations. We all like to think that we would continue to act honorably, but we don't know.
So let's talk about a little bit about what you just said. They're such horrible people, but I love them.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Penny as the narrator a little bit. Now, she clearly has a hatred for her husband.
Right.
We know that she is connected in some way to arson and murder. Yet, I found her voice in this thing very level-headed, almost calm, and if that wasn't the intent, or if I'm misreading this, she seemed very intelligent and rational in her thoughts, and because of that, I found her easy to root for. It's almost like she was my guiding light through the novel. She's the one that was telling me what was going on, and coming through her eyes, I thought, how bad a person can you be?
Right.
Tell me about
especially when the person who's guiding, like that's your only guide, and so you kind of have to be listening to your narrator. I mean, and as they start to take you through, and maybe they're doing things that you don't approve of, they're still your only guide, right? So
what choice do you have?
In different drafts, I mean, there were more aspects of Hattie's voice. The story at one point was written from both their point of views. But in the end, I chose to have it just be Patty, and for that reason. I mean, she's taking you through this thing. There's a point in having her be the only person who's going to tell this story to you, and so you have to make choices about how you feel or what you believe, or whose version of events you are listening to when you're only hearing one. And so that was intentional. But yeah, she is intelligent and she is rational, and she didn't expect any of these things to happen to her in her life, but was dealt a poor hand, maybe she felt from the beginning, and made certain choices, and then life got harder and made even more difficult choices. I mean, she didn't start out the way that she ends up, I would say, and she would probably agree.
No, I think initially she was looking for a very traditional life. She wants to be married, and move on from there. It's a little eerie the way that you're putting your faith in this narrator, knowing some of the things she's involved with, but listening to that voice, you're thinking, like you say, she's my connection to the rest of this story, so take it or leave it, and I think it's very compelling the way that plays out.
Thanks. And I mean, and the choices happen in increments too. It's not like you start out and she's doing this extreme, although on page one it is extreme. But I mean, her life seems like it happens more gradually, and so it feels easier to swallow, I guess.
So speaking of page one,
yes.
you don't waste any time. Page one, there's fire, there's death, boom, there you are. The theme of fire, though, let's talk about fire, because it rears its head a couple other times in the story in different ways. Talk a little bit about the role that fire plays as a theme in this book.
Well, I mean, it's such a great visual. I mean, symbolically, it's a beautiful visual. I mean, Hattie has red hair, and these ideas of smoke and embers and something smoldering. Penny's got black hair. But also the idea that, out of fire can come redemption, the beginning of a new life, the sort of phoenix rising from the ashes. I mean, there are all different ways that we can look at fire as a metaphor, as a symbol. But visually, starting the book with a fire felt like a great place to begin the whole thing. And the smell, too, is so evocative as a real thing. It can work its way into so many aspects of a story.
This was not the kind of novel where, if a friend recommends it, And he said, well, you've got to get into it. Give it 50 or 100 pages to get into it. This is like give it 50 to 100 words and you're into it. I want to talk about a couple of particular characters. You introduce a character, Jameson. Jameson takes to both sisters and winds up having a love interest in one. But I'm just curious, and this doesn't really necessarily tie into the plot, but is there any significance in the fact that you decided to create this character with a physical handicap? He has one arm, and I wasn't sure, I was trying to think about that, but tell me.
Sure. Some of what I teach at Ryerson is, representation in the media and normalizing our fictional worlds the way that our real world is, and that and trying to populate our stories with people who are representative of a diverse world. And so at first, Jameson lost his arm due to an accident. And, in the end, I decided not to have that. I just wanted him to be born that way because I didn't want him to be a tragic figure. I didn't want him to be a pitiable figure. I wanted him to be an interesting character, and I feel like that's what he is. But yeah, he's just like other people in the world. He's not like everybody else in the world, but none of us is. And so it was just a choice to try to introduce some small amount of diversity into my book.
No, I think he's a highly respectable character.
Do you? I don't know.
You don't think? Did I miss something? I don't know. I'll have to read it again now.
Yeah,
but the idea, it sounds like you say you changed how he lost the arm, and both ideas are introduced in the story, right?
Yes. So sorry about that spoiler.
Actually, when I knew we were having this interview and I was starting to formulate the questions, I'm thinking, how much can I ask without giving this away?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the fact that you set it up on page 1 with something made it a whole lot easier. I thought, I'm not, anybody's like, don't tell me about the fire.
I can say, okay, there's a murder, but it's on page 1, so, it's okay.
Let's talk about another character, Joseph. Joseph is he was interesting to me. He's an elderly, he runs a handyman shop, but he takes Penny in as a boarder. She lives in the upstairs apartment, and they become friends. Mm-hmm. I found this character, I was waiting to see where this character was going to go, and we don't have to say, but he seems so different from all the others. Mm-hmm. And I was just curious, why was he introduced, or what does he stand for?
I think he is stable and reliable and honorable, in a way that God did Penny ever need that then? So I think that he's to me my most favorite in terms of lovable characters, and I think that he represented something that Penny really needed in her life and didn't have in her life, and he comes through in a way that no one else really has. And so I think, literally puts a roof over her head, but also provides for her in a way that is comfort that she has never really been able to have. So she's never really been able to settle down inside. And I think he offers some glimpse of that at the very least.
I think he sets the bar for goodness,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, here is the good, noble character that she needs that influence. There's no hidden agenda. There are no secrets,
But he also feels a little bit like a last of his kind. I mean, not only in the fact that he's running a repair shop, which we don't have anymore. I mean, when I was growing up, there'd be a repair shop. You could bring in something to have repaired, and now we just throw things away because everything's so cheap.
Right.
So I think in a way he's sort of the last of his kind in many ways, and he's the last of his kind in the book. He stands out as sort of a diamond in the rough.
Right, absolutely. So domestic abuse, emotional, mental health concerns, those are two themes that are brought up in the book. Tell me why you chose to write about those.
Well, I mean, certainly the focus of the book is not domestic abuse, although it hinges on it. I think a lot of thrillers have domestic abuse in them, but they focus on the women as, they're a plot device rather than the characters. And in this book, I wanted the women to be the main characters. I wanted them to be what the plot revolved around, rather than just sort of evidence or a symptom of something that was a grisly murder and they're just left on the floor. So I wanted them to be the things where the book took off from, rather than the way the book ended. But it's a very real thing for many people, as is mental illness, as is alcoholism. All of these things are parts of the book. I mean, and these things happen everywhere. That in this book, they happen in a small town. They happen beside us. They happen in big cities and small towns, and that's very normal, and that can take place without us knowing. And so for me, that just felt like this is another family that we don't know anything about.
Mm-hmm. So now that the book's been published, tell me,
Yes.
what did you learn about writing this book and about yourself that will help you in your next book?
Gosh, I mean, I feel like I'm always learning, but I'm much more efficient now, much more efficient. So getting a draft done, figuring it out, and nailing it down, like I don't mess around now. Like I have a job to do. So there's not as much self-doubt, maybe. I feel like I have a better idea of what the book will need. I have a better idea of what readers will like. I'm just much more efficient. And what I learned with the book coming out is like about the whole machine of social media and publicity and all that stuff, which is so interesting. When you write a book, it's such a solitary act, and you're by yourself, and it's sort of this lone pursuit. And then it gets out in the world, and it's out in the world, and then you're out in the world, and the people who are reading the book are talking about it in the world. And so it goes from being so private to so public. Almost on the flip of a coin. And so that's been very interesting for me to experience as well.
That's a very interesting observation that I've never thought about.
Mm-hmm.
That it's a very solitary activity and profession until it's done. Then hopefully everybody will be talking about it, and word gets out, and you're doing interviews and things like that, and your life changes a little bit.
And authors aren't always great at that kind of thing. Like, you've probably been at parties with authors. We're kind of weird. We spend a lot of time by ourselves, and we're not the most personable people all the time. And so it's an adjustment. Like, I'm a high-functioning introvert. I speak in front of hundreds of people for a job, but as soon as I'm done my class, I like to be by myself. And so, my job is a lot like that too, like being alone and then being in front of people, then being alone as well. So being a professor, maybe sometimes not that unlike being a fiction writer.
Yeah, I'm sure that helps. Being on the stage and talking about your work and just talking and communicating with people like that. So somehow I think you navigate between the solitary world and the public world pretty well. Yeah. What's next on the table? What's cooking? I
just finished a book, and it's being read by the powers that be. So I'm just in that nail-biting, waiting phase. So I've written a book, so that's sort of all I'll say. But it has strong female characters and has some tension, and I'm really excited about it. So we're excited to see what happens next with it.
Well, we'll anxiously await it. I can't wait to see it. Thanks so much, Laurie. We appreciate you chatting with us today. The book, again, is Sister of Mine. It's a great, fun read. I really enjoyed it. We highly recommend it. And we wish you much success, and we look forward to your next one.
Thanks so much, Jim. I really appreciate you having me on.